My name is Lily Anderson. I'm 27, and I finally stopped ruining my own life the day I stopped pretending I was okay with just being friends. On paper, I'm painfully average. I'm a marketing coordinator at a tech company in Denver. I've been there 5 years. I grew up in the suburbs just outside the city, split level house, two siblings, packed school lunches, and parents who drilled the same phrases into us like they were commandments. Do the right thing, be kind, don't hurt people. I took all of that to heart so hard that somewhere along the way, I forgot that not hurting people also includes me. And then there's Aiden Cole, 25, graphic designer, came from Connecticut with old money stories he never quite tells but always hints at. One of those people life seems to bend around, beautiful in that effortless, careless way. Dark hair that always looks like he just ran a hand through it and somehow it fell perfectly. Vintage band tees, perfect teeth, and a laugh you feel in your ribcage. We met at a brewery downtown 3 years ago. Mutual friends, craft beer, string lights, and too loud music. He made a joke about IPA tasting like grapefruit-flavored regret. I snorted. He grinned like he'd accomplished something. We clicked, instantly. After that, it was like gravity. Late-night phone calls where he'd pace his apartment and talk about his client from hell. Netflix marathons at his place in Capitol Hill. Just one more episode until it was 2 in the morning. Grabbing coffee before work. Texting each other about dumb memes throughout the day. Everyone assumed we were dating. Honestly, I did too, just unofficially. No label, no conversation. I told myself we were taking it slow, that he wasn't ready after some vague heartbreak from college he never fully explained. But I was already acting like his girlfriend. I answered every text immediately. I canceled plans to see him. I drove across town to help him build furniture, calm him down after bad days, listen to every spiral in his head. He had access to me on demand, and I wore my exhaustion like proof that I was loyal. The thing about almost relationships is that the word almost does all the heavy lifting. Almost something serious. Almost what you want. Almost enough to keep you staying. 2 months ago, we were having one of our usual movie nights. It was early spring in Denver, one of those nights where the city couldn't decide if it was done with winter yet. The windows in his Capitol Hill apartment fogged just a little against the cold. He'd made popcorn, burned the first batch, because of course he did. We were sharing a blanket on his couch, legs tangled. The room was dark except for the glow of the TV and the city lights leaking through the blinds. His head was resting on my shoulder, warm and heavy and familiar. I could feel his breath on my neck when he laughed. My heart kept doing that stupid stutter it does around him, the one I tried to ignore. I watched the movie, but mostly I watched him in the reflection of the TV screen. The curve of his jaw, his lashes when he blinked, the tiny scar near his temple he said he got when he fell off a bike as a kid. In that moment, I thought, if this isn't dating, I don't know what is. There was this quiet part in the movie. No dialogue, just a soundtrack of soft piano and rain. My hand was already on his chest under the blanket. I could feel his heartbeat, steady as if none of this meant anything. Mine was sprinting. Just do it, a voice in my head said. You're already losing him by inches. At least lose him being honest. So I turned my head. It felt slow and loud at the same time, like the whole room was listening. His eyes flicked to mine. I leaned in. And then he pulled back. Not dramatically, not with a jerk. Just enough. Enough to make the air between us suddenly icy. Lily, he said softly, like he was about to tell me my dog died. Let's not ruin the friendship. I froze. My cheeks burned so hot I was sure they lit up the room. You mean too much to me to risk losing you, he added. The classic line. The one you hear in movies and swear you'll never accept in real life. But there I was, accepting it. I swallowed hard and forced a laugh that sounded like it came from someone else. Yeah, no, totally. Sorry. That was dumb. He immediately rushed to reassure me. It's not dumb. You're not dumb. I really don't want to mess this up. You're my best friend, Lil. I don't know who I'd be without you. It's wild how someone can stab you right through the heart and then hand you a Band-Aid like they're doing you a favor. On the ride home, I tried to convince myself I was fine. I watched the city blur by my windshield and told myself I understood. He didn't like me like that. He wanted my emotional labor, not my body. My comfort, not my commitment. Cool. Totally fine. Rejection sucks, but I could handle it. I've handled worse. I could be mature. I could be his best friend and pretend that almost was enough. Except, somewhere between his door and my driveway, something in me finally snapped. I replayed his words over and over in my head. You mean too much to me to risk losing you. It sounded sweet until I translated it. You're too convenient to lose. You're too useful to let go. I like you exactly where you are, close enough to save me, far enough that I owe you nothing. By the time I pulled into my parking spot, I was shaking. Not crying, not yet, just vibrating with this cold, sharp clarity I'd never allowed myself. If I kept playing the role, I wasn't going to ruin the friendship. I was going to ruin myself. So I made a decision. If he wanted a friend, I would finally be one. Not his emotional wife, not his on-call therapist, not his unpaid assistant. Just a friend. The way I treat Mike, my buddy from college, who now runs construction sites and sends me pictures of his dog. The way I treat the girls in my trivia group. People I care about but don't sacrifice myself for. No more instant replies. No more dropping everything when his name lit up my phone. No more 2 a.m. crisis calls I had to drag myself out of bed for. I wouldn't ice him out. I wouldn't punish him. I would just stop prioritizing him above everyone and everything else in my life. The next morning, when his "You home safe" text came in at 1:02 a.m., I didn't answer. I saw it. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. The old version of me was screaming, "Respond! Show him you care. Be the good one." I put my phone face down and went to sleep. I replied at 9:17 a.m., after my shower, after coffee, after my morning emails. Yeah, made it. Night was fun. Hope you slept okay. No emoji, no essay, just normal. He answered in 3 minutes. You okay? You usually text back right away, lol. I stared at the screen. My chest tightened. Then I typed, yeah, just crashed early. Busy week. Lies, technically. The only thing I'd been busy doing was trying to grow a spine. Over the next week, I practiced. I got back to him when I was actually free, not the second my phone buzzed. I stopped rearranging my weekends around his vague, we should do something texts. I went to trivia night with my friends instead of canceling because he'd had a rough day and wanted to just hang out. And the thing about people who are used to your lack of boundaries is that they don't applaud when you grow them. They get annoyed. One Saturday, I was at a Rockies game with Mike and a couple of coworkers. My phone was buried somewhere in my bag, drowned under the roar of the crowd and the smell of stadium food. By the time I dug it out on the train home, I had 6 missed texts from Aiden. Where are you? Everything okay? Lily? I really need to talk. Are you mad at me or something? Wow. Okay. Old me would have called from the bathroom, whispering apologies into the echo of tile and fluorescent lights. New me took a deep breath, felt my heart race like I was about to jump into cold water, and typed, Hey, was at the game, just seeing these. Everything all right? I barely had time to put the phone down before it lit up with his name calling. I hesitated, then answered. Hey, I said. Seriously? His voice came through sharp, already mid-argument. You saw my text hours later, Lil. What's going on with you? I blinked. I was out. I'm allowed to have a life, Aiden. You used to always pick up when I needed you. There it was. Not, are you okay? Not, I was worried. Just, you used to. I'm still your friend, I said carefully. But I'm not on call, Aiden. Friends aren't emergency services. He went quiet for a second. I could picture him pacing, hand in his hair, eyes narrowed like he was trying to solve a puzzle that offended him. This isn't you, he finally said. You're being cold, distant, not the Lily I know. A laugh bubbled up before I could stop it, not because it was funny, but because it was ridiculous. The Lily you know, I said slowly, was pretending she was okay with being your stand-in girlfriend while you didn't actually want her. Silence. I heard his breath catch. Where is this coming from? He asked. I looked out the train window at the city sliding past. For the first time, Denver looked less like a backdrop to our almost love story, and more like a place that still belonged to me. From me finally taking you at your word, I said. You said you wanted to be friends, so I'm being a friend, a normal one, with boundaries. He scoffed, this low, disbelieving sound. That's not how our friendship works. I swallowed the familiar urge to say I was sorry, to fix it, to make him comfortable. Maybe, I said, my voice steadier than I felt, our friendship has been working a little too well for you. He didn't like that. And I could feel, even through the phone, that this was the moment everything began to crack. A week after that phone call on the train, Aiden started testing my new limits like they were a bad software update. It began on a Tuesday night. At 11:02 p.m., my phone lit up on the nightstand. Aiden, can you call? I really need to talk to someone. Old Lily would have called before the 3 dots on his typing bubble even disappeared. I would have lain there in the dark, whispering back as he unloaded about his day, his coworkers, his family, his exes, his everything. My thumb hovered over his name. I could feel that familiar panic rising up. What if he really needs you? What if something's wrong? And right behind it, the memory of his voice. Let's not ruin the friendship. I put my phone face down and turned off the lamp. I slept. In the morning, there was no police tape, no tragedy, just a new text on my lock screen and the same old sky outside my window. I made coffee, answered a few work emails, and only then replied. Lily, hey, was asleep. Everything okay? If it's urgent, you can call Mike or Jenna. 15 minutes later, my phone started vibrating on my desk at work. Aiden. I was in a meeting, half listening to my manager talk about Q3 projections. The phone buzzed again and again. I flipped it face down and shoved it under my notebook. By lunch, he'd called twice more. I called him back around 6, on my way out of the office. The sky was that washed-out Denver blue, the air cool enough I regretted not bringing a jacket. He answered on the first ring. Where have you been? He snapped. No hello, no how are you, just accusation. I called you like 5 times. I was at work, I said, stepping around a puddle on the sidewalk. Some of us have jobs that don't operate on freelance artist time. I really needed to talk, he said. His voice cracked just enough to make guilt tug at my ribs. I exhaled. Okay, I'm here now, what's up? There was a pause, then, it doesn't matter now. Aiden, you wouldn't understand anyway, he muttered. Then he hung up. 10 minutes later, he texted, sorry, I'm just stressed. Coffee tomorrow? Once upon a time, I would have answered with 3 exclamation marks and rearranged my entire schedule for him. This time I stared at the message and thought of my calendar. I actually have plans tomorrow morning, I typed, but we can do later in the week. Who are you hanging out with? Came instantly. The possessiveness in that question made my fingers go cold. I didn't answer, because the truth was I did have plans. With Noah. Noah works in accounting at my company. He's the kind of guy you don't notice at first because he's not performing for the room. But once you do, you start wondering how you missed him. He's 26 from Ohio, with an easy smile and those soft brown eyes that make you feel like he's actually listening when you talk. We'd been grabbing coffee randomly for months. Lately, the random part had started feeling suspiciously intentional. That Wednesday morning, we met at the cafe across from our office. The barista knew his order by heart. Morning, Lily, she sing-songed. Oat milk latte? Yep, I nodded at Noah. And a black coffee for this one. He put a hand dramatically over his heart. She remembers how I like my coffee. I feel seen. We sat by the window. We were supposed to talk about the upcoming campaign budget. We ended up talking about everything else. He told me about growing up in a town where everyone knew everyone and how Denver still feels like a movie set to him. I told him about my mom's obsession with couponing and how my dad still calls any streaming service Netflix by default. We laughed until my throat hurt. At some point, I looked at my watch and realized we had been there for almost 2 hours. Oh my God, we're going to be late, I said, half standing. We'll blame each other, he grinned. Teamwork. We walked into the office together, 2 caffeinated and slightly breathless, and I felt light. Like someone had quietly removed a weighted vest I hadn't known I was wearing. At my desk, my phone buzzed. Aiden, did you forget how to text? I set it down, screen face up this time, and let the notification sit there while I opened my laptop. That night, things escalated. I go to a gym in Stapleton. It's nowhere near Aiden's place in Capitol Hill, and he has a membership at a boutique gym 2 blocks from his apartment. It's one of the small comforts I carved out for myself, a place that didn't feel like it belonged to him too. I was halfway through a set of squats when I heard a familiar voice. Lily? I racked the bar and turned. Aiden stood there in the mirror's reflection, wearing a tank top that showed off the tattoo on his shoulder and that slightly smug smile he wore like armor. I stared at him. What are you doing here? He shrugged, trying a new place. My gym's been crowded lately. His gym, the one that's basically in his building, sure. He drifted closer between my sets, leaning on the rack like it was his living room couch. We should grab dinner after this, he said at one point as I wiped sweat from my forehead. Catch up, like we used to. I have meal prep at home, I said. Stuff I don't want to waste. He actually pouted. Wow, since when are you this busy? Since always, I said. You just never noticed. He laughed like I was joking. I didn't correct him. The next day at work, it was another text barrage. Do you remember that time we drove up to Boulder to watch the sunset at Chautauqua Park? Yeah, I replied eventually. That was nice. I miss that. I miss us. My stomach twisted. We're still friends, Aiden, I wrote. It just doesn't feel the same because I'm not treating you like a girlfriend anymore. I stared at those words after I sent them. Girlfriend. The thing I had been in every way except the one that counted. He didn't respond for hours. Then finally, that's not fair. I almost dropped the phone. Because no, it wasn't fair. But not in the way he thought. That Friday, Mike came over with beers. We sat on my couch as the Rockies played on mute in the background, and I handed him my phone. He scrolled through the messages, grunting occasionally. Finally, he set the phone down and looked at me. Lil, he said, he's treating you like a girlfriend without the benefits. You're doing all his emotional labor, being his security blanket, and he gets to date whoever he wants while keeping you on the hook. I winced. I don't think he's doing it on purpose. Doesn't matter, Mike said. Intentions don't change impact. When's the last time he canceled plans for you? When's the last time he asked about your problems instead of dumping his? I opened my mouth, then closed it. I couldn't think of a single time. The next night, one of my coworkers had a house party in Highlands. Strings of lights in the backyard, cheap beer and coolers. Someone's playlist fighting with the sound of laughter. Noah was there, leaning against the back fence, talking with a couple from HR. When he saw me, his face lit up in a way that made something warm unfurl in my chest. You made it, he said. Of course. I nudged his shoulder lightly. I heard there would be free chips. I go where the chips are. We ended up by the fire pit, talking for most of the night. The conversation didn't feel like pulling teeth the way it so often did with Aiden, where I had to pry details about his life out of him between monologues about his latest crisis. Noah asked questions. He listened. When I mentioned being tired lately, his first response wasn't same or, yeah, well, let me tell you about my week. It was, why? What's going on? At some point, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. Around midnight, it buzzed again. Then again. I stepped away to the side of the yard, near the fence, and finally checked. Aiden. Where are you? Aiden. You at a party? Aiden. Can I come? Aiden. It's a work thing. I can meet your work friends. I stared at the messages and felt my jaw clench. Lily. I'm at a coworker's party in Highlands. What's up? The 3 dots popped up immediately, then disappeared, then popped up again. Finally, he called. I took a breath and answered. Hey, I said. Why are you ignoring me? He demanded. I'm not, I replied evenly. Inside, my heart was hammering. I'm at a party. I'm here with coworkers. You never invite me to things anymore, he said. You used to always want me around. The words hung between us like a ghost. I used to always want him around because I thought one day, if I just proved myself enough, he'd finally look at me and say, you're it. Now that I'd stopped chasing that fantasy, all I could see was how much space he took up in my life when he'd never offered me a real place in his. I'm not going to crash a work event with you, I said. It's not my party to invite people to. He scoffed. So that's it? You just moved on? Found someone else to be your project? The ugly implication in his voice startled me. I'm not your project, I shot back. I never was. He hung up without saying goodbye. By the time I got home, I had 17 new texts and 4 missed calls. They ranged from, are you okay, to, did I do something wrong, to, I feel like you hate me now. The volume of it made my skin crawl. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the screen, feeling both guilty and furious. I called him the next morning. Aiden, I said as soon as he picked up, I don't hate you, but this isn't normal for friends. What does that even mean? He snapped. You're acting like I'm some psycho. You're acting like I owe you constant access, I said. To my time, my attention, my life. I don't owe that to anyone except a partner. And you made it very clear you don't want to be that. So this is about that stupid almost kiss? He asked. You're punishing me for not wanting to date you? The words hit like a slap. I'm not punishing you, I said, voice shaking. I'm just not rewarding you for taking me for granted anymore. There's a difference. This isn't you, he insisted. You're one of the most caring people I know. You don't do boundaries. He meant it as a compliment. It felt like a diagnosis. I'm still caring, I said quietly. I'm just not going to pour all of it into one person who doesn't give it back. He was silent for a long moment. I need time to think, he finally muttered. Okay, I said, take the time you need. He hung up. I stared at my reflection in the black screen of my phone and barely recognized myself. Not because I'd become cruel, but because I'd finally become someone who considered herself worth protecting. For the first time in 3 years, we didn't speak for more than 24 hours. Then 48. Then 3 days. On the 4th day, my phone buzzed with a message from Jenna, his roommate. Jenna. Hey, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but Aiden's been seeing some girl, a banker from Cherry Creek, Bianca. They've been going out for like 2 months now. I read that sentence over and over until the words blurred. 2 months. 2 months ago was Capitol Hill. The shared blanket. The almost kiss. The let's not ruin the friendship. 2 months ago, I was driving home with my chest in pieces, trying to make peace with losing something that had never officially existed. 2 months ago, he was already auditioning someone else for the role he never let me have. And suddenly everything snapped into focus. He rejected me to protect the friendship while dating Bianca and still expected me to be his emotional girlfriend. I put the phone down. For the first time since all of this started, I didn't feel sad. I felt done. I won't lie to you. The next few days were a strange mix of peace and the quiet hum of unresolved tension. The noise, the constant texts and calls from Aiden, had stopped. But in its place, there was this tightness in my chest, like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. The thing about breaking free from something like that is you expect the guilt to come crashing in. You think it's going to be this overwhelming wave of regret. But for me, it wasn't that way at all. It was Noah. I guess I hadn't realized how much I'd been starving for someone to ask about me. Me. Not the parts I performed, not the versions of me I gave away for free. Someone who wanted to know about what kept me up at night, the stories I had forgotten to tell, and the hobbies I used to love before I put them on hold for him. Noah listened to me. He actually listened. We spent hours over coffee that Tuesday morning, talking about everything under the sun. He asked me questions, real questions, not just the surface stuff. What did I like to do for fun? What did I hope for in my career? What made me tick, deep down? It felt like I was relearning myself through his eyes, like maybe I wasn't as broken as I thought. And the best part, I didn't have to earn his attention. It was just there, steady, genuine. I realized that morning, as we laughed over something stupid at work, that I was starting to like him. Maybe more than just as a friend. I had no idea how to process it yet. The last time I'd felt this good about someone was when I thought Aiden might finally see me for who I was. But this time was different. This time, Noah didn't need me to fix him. He just wanted me. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was enough. It was that evening, though, that the emotional whirlwind of the past few weeks found its center. Aiden texted me. "We need to talk." 3 words I'd been waiting for but never wanted to hear. I stared at the message for a solid minute before responding. I wanted to ignore it, to let it go, but I knew better. "Lily, okay, when? Later tonight?" I chewed on my lip and debated with myself. Noah was at my apartment, talking with me about work stuff. We were in the middle of planning a presentation for next week, but my phone had become a constant distraction. I texted Aiden back, knowing I needed to stop pretending this was just a friendship. "Lily, where?" "Linger, 8 p.m. I agreed. But inside, something snapped. Not in a bad way. More like a flip of a switch that told me, I'm done with this. I'm done waiting for something that doesn't exist. When I arrived at Linger, Aiden was already there, looking like he had rehearsed this conversation in front of a mirror for hours. His usual charm was gone. There was no light in his eyes, just a heaviness in his shoulders. The boy I once saw as effortlessly magnetic suddenly seemed smaller. The air between us felt sharp, tight, like he had something to prove. "I'm glad you came," he said quietly when I sat down. "Me too," I said, pulling off my jacket. I hadn't thought about what I was going to say. I was just going to listen, to let him speak first. I had a feeling this wasn't going to be a simple chat. "Lily," he started, running his hand through his hair nervously. "I've been thinking about everything you said. I've realized I've taken you for granted, and I've been unfair to you." His eyes met mine, searching for something. Approval, maybe? Validation? I didn't flinch. "Unfair in what way?" His voice cracked just slightly. "I've treated you like you were always there for me, but I was never there for you. I thought I could keep you as my friend, but also have, well, more, without actually having to risk anything. And I thought you'd be okay with that." He let out a short, frustrated laugh. But I was wrong. I let the words hang between us. My stomach churned, but it wasn't because I felt bad for him. It was because I had given so much of myself to this, to him, and he'd kept me at arm's length while simultaneously asking for everything. "I never wanted to hurt you," he continued. "I never thought you would." He hesitated. "I never thought you would stop fighting for me." The implication stung. Stop fighting for him? Had he really thought I was still fighting for him? That he was worth it? I shook my head, the anger finally bubbling up, mixing with the old hurt. Aiden, you can't keep someone as your backup emotional support while you figure out what you want. I let you do that for 3 years. He reached across the table. I didn't pull my hand away this time, not because I was afraid, but because it didn't feel like a victory anymore. I was just tired. I didn't mean to use you, he said, his voice small now. But I did. I get that now, and I'm sorry. The words were supposed to heal the damage, but they only made it clearer. I was never the one he wanted. I never thought of you as a backup plan, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I leaned back, the coolness of the air settling over me. Then what was I, Aiden? Tell me. Because for 3 years, I've treated you like my world. I've given you everything, and you didn't even have the decency to tell me you didn't feel the same way. His eyes dropped, and I knew then he had no answer. He just wanted me to keep being there for him. He needed me, but not in the way I had needed him. I was scared, he said quietly. Scared of losing you, scared of risking the friendship. So I kept you in this limbo, hoping something would change. Limbo. That was it. That was where he kept me, where I kept myself. Guess what, Aiden? I'm done. Done waiting for you to figure it out. Done being the backup. I'm not going to keep giving you pieces of me while you pretend you don't want the whole thing. He sat back staring at me, the reality sinking in. There was nothing else to say. And just so we're clear, I added, my voice steadier now, I'm seeing someone who actually wants me, not just the emotional labor I give. His face went pale. What? Noah, I said simply. I've been seeing Noah for the past few weeks. I watched him digest that, and for a brief second I felt something. Something like pity, but also something like freedom. Aiden started, but his voice faltered. He opened his mouth again, but no words came out. I took a deep breath. This conversation is over. I need space, Aiden. You need space. We're not going to keep pretending we're something we're not. The waitress arrived with our drinks, and I could feel the tension in the room shift. I paid the bill quickly, refusing to look back at him. I stood and left before he could say another word. By the time I reached the door, I was already done. And for the first time in 3 years, I didn't feel like I was losing anything. The wedding had been on our calendars for months. A mutual friend from our old brewery group, one of the few couples that had managed to turn casual drinks into something real. They chose Red Rocks as their venue, which felt dramatic and fitting. Massive red cliffs, a stage carved from the earth itself, the sky open like a cathedral. A place where things ended, a place where things began, a place you couldn't hide. And I wasn't hiding anymore. Noah and I arrived early, around 4 p.m. The ceremony wasn't until 5, but he wanted to walk around, see the view before the crowd arrived. He'd never been to Red Rocks. I loved seeing the way he kept stopping every few steps, taking in the scenery like he was 6 years old at his first museum. His curiosity made everything feel lighter, easier. As we walked toward the seating area, I caught sight of a familiar silhouette. Aiden, cream suit, perfectly styled hair, the same casual confidence he always carried, except now it looked forced. His jaw clenched, his eyes a little too restless. And beside him, Bianca, tall, elegant, the kind of woman who walked like she'd been wearing heels since birth. She had her hand looped through Aiden's arm, her laughter too sharp, too bright. The kind of laughter that says, "Look, I'm fine. I'm totally fine. Look how fine I am." Aiden saw me almost instantly. His expression changed in a flicker, recognition, then tension, then something sharp and jealous when Noah reached for my hand. Noah leaned in. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said. "Perfect." We took our seats somewhere in the middle rows. The light was golden, stretching across the amphitheater. Musicians warmed up on strings. A breeze tugged at the hem of my dress. And during the entire ceremony, I could feel eyes on me. Not from behind, from 3 rows ahead. Aiden kept glancing over his shoulder, that same look each time, like he was trying to read something in my face, like he wanted to know if he'd lost something that had been his by default for too long. Bianca noticed. Of course she noticed. Her spine grew stiff. Her smile became strained. She whispered something to him, and he gave a short, irritated shake of his head. I pressed closer to Noah, letting his shoulder warm mine. The ceremony was beautiful. Our friends said their vows under the open sky, their words echoing against stone. When they kissed, the entire crowd cheered. Everyone looked happy, except the man who used to treat me like an emotional utility, and the woman who'd started noticing she wasn't the only one in his orbit. Reception, 6:30 p.m. A massive white tent had been set up beside the amphitheater, glowing from the inside like a lantern. People drifted toward it in clusters, the sound of clinking glasses and soft chatter filling the air. Noah and I found our table. It was the perfect mix. Mike and his girlfriend, a few of my coworkers, and two of the groom's cousins. Easy people, fun people. People I didn't have to shrink myself around. As we sat down, I noticed Aiden and Bianca being seated 3 tables over. Close enough to see, close enough to overhear, far enough to pretend not to care. Mike leaned toward me, nodding subtly in their direction. Just so you know, Aiden's been staring at you guys all night. His date looks like she wants to stab him with a cocktail fork. I snorted into my wine. Not my problem anymore. That's my girl, Mike grinned. Throughout dinner, I kept catching glimpses of Noah effortlessly blending with everyone. He wasn't loud or flashy. He wasn't performing for anyone. He laughed easily. He asked thoughtful questions. He didn't subtly pull me closer when he saw Aiden looking. He let me be myself and stayed close in a quiet, steady way. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't have to shrink myself to make room for someone else's insecurities. Later, when I excused myself to get another drink, that's when it happened. I was standing at the bar, waiting for the bartender to finish pouring a beer, when I felt someone step up behind me. "Hey," Aiden said quietly. I didn't jump. I didn't spin around dramatically. I simply turned my head, met his eyes, and nodded. "Aiden." He hesitated, glancing toward Noah, who was still seated at our table, talking with Mike. "She seems nice," he said. "Noah." "He is," I replied. "You look happy." "I am." He swallowed, hard. "Can we talk, just for a minute?" I didn't want to. God, I didn't. But endings need air. Closure needs oxygen. I nodded once. 1 minute. We walked just a little past the tent, not far, still in the glow of the wedding lights, but private enough that I could feel the tension radiating off him. He took a breath, bracing himself, and said the sentence I never wanted, and once desperately wanted, to hear. "I broke up with Bianca." I blinked. "Okay." "Aiden," I said slowly, "I don't think that's—" "She said I was distracted," he continued. "Said I've been off, ever since I saw you and Noah were coming together tonight." I exhaled sharply. "Aiden." "And she was right," he said. His voice cracked slightly. "Because I am hung up on someone else." I stared at him. Then he said the words, those heavy, too late words. "I'm hung up on you." The air felt thin. My heartbeat didn't speed up. My breath didn't catch. Nothing sparked. Just sadness for who I used to be, for all the time I wasted hoping this moment would save me. "You should have said that years ago," I said softly. "Not when you realize someone else sees my worth." "That's not it." "It is," I said. "You didn't want me. You wanted what I gave you, the time, the validation, the emotional labor. You loved being chosen. You didn't love me." "That's not true," he whispered. "I do want you." "No." I shook my head. "You want the girl who dropped everything for you. You want the version of me who never said no. You want the security I gave you. You want the emotional perks without the responsibility." His face crumpled. "Lily, please." "I spent 3 years being your almost," I said. "Your emotional girlfriend, your backup plan. And now that I've finally chosen myself, finally chosen someone who actually wants me, you think you can just say the right words and rewind time?" "I love you," he breathed. Once, that sentence would have been everything. Tonight, it was nothing but an overdue apology wrapped in wishful thinking. "No," I said, my voice steady. "You love how I made you feel, not me." I turned to walk back toward the tent. "Lily," he said, voice breaking. "So that's it? We're just done?" I looked over my shoulder at him, illuminated in the red glow of the rocks. "Yeah," I said, "we're done." And I walked back to where Noah was waiting, where I realized I had already arrived long before tonight. When I walked back into the tent, the lights felt warmer than before, soft, golden, almost unreal. The kind of warmth you notice only after you've stepped out of the cold. Noah stood up the moment he saw me, not out of insecurity, not out of possessiveness, just quiet concern. "You okay?" he asked. I wasn't fragile anymore, but the way he asked still softened something inside me. "Everything's perfect," I said. He didn't push for details. He didn't interrogate. He didn't ask who I talked to or why. He simply nodded, took my hand, and let the moment be what it was. The band started playing something slow and familiar, a cover of a song I couldn't quite place, but the melody wrapped around us like a memory we hadn't lived yet. Noah squeezed my hand. "Dance with me?" "Always," I said before I could second guess it. We walked onto the dance floor. The mountain air was cool against my skin, the lights reflected in Noah's eyes, and for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't realized I'd been missing. Safety. Not the safety of being someone's habit or convenience, not the safety of being needed, but the safety of being wanted. There's a difference, a big one. I rested my head on his chest, hearing his steady heartbeat as we swayed. No tension, no hesitation, no dramatic speeches or emotional theatrics, just presence. Two people choosing each other in real time. Somewhere in the periphery, I noticed movement, a figure slipping out of the tent. Aiden, alone, shoulders hunched. Bianca appeared moments later, following him out with a frustrated look, and then turned back, shaking her head. They didn't come back inside. I let my eyes close. For the first time in 3 years, I didn't feel guilty. 3 days later, life went on. The wedding glow faded into normal days. Morning coffee runs with Noah, work meetings, grocery trips, girls' night with my sister Haley. But with normalcy came the aftershocks. Aiden texted me the day after the wedding. I finally understand what I threw away. I hope you and Noah are happy. No accusations, no guilt trips, just that. I stared at the message for a full minute before locking my phone without replying. Not out of spite, out of closure. I showed the message to Noah later that evening, curled up on my couch together eating leftover Thai food. He read it, then chuckled softly. You want my honest reaction? Always. He passed the phone back to me. I think he finally realized you're not his safety net anymore. And that's painful, but also not your job to fix. I leaned into him. You're not jealous? No, he said simply. Because you're here, with me, by choice. Not because you need me, but because you want me. My chest tightened in the best way. He was right. I wanted him. More importantly, he wanted me. Not what I could give him, not the emotional labor I'd become too good at supplying. Just me. Messy, complicated, human me. The friend circle fallout. Mike texted me a day later. Ashley, that's what he still called Aiden out of habit, has been crying to everyone about how she messed up the best thing she ever had. Jenna sent a separate message. Aiden's been quiet, like actually quiet. He's been staying in his room a lot. I think the wedding messed him up. Haley called me from her car, whispering like she was reporting for a documentary. You were too patient with him, she said. I love you, but thank God you woke up. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my phone. Then she added more softly, I'm proud of you. And that meant more than I expected. My parents' house. Sunday afternoon. Noah met my parents. I'd warned him. My mom fusses, my dad interrogates, Haley meddles. He just said, good, I like families who care. Dinner was warm and chaotic and full of laughter. And afterward, while Haley distracted Noah by grilling him about board games and camping trips, my mom pulled me aside. We stood in the kitchen, the smell of roasted chicken still in the air, the windows cracked open to let in the autumn breeze. She took my hands gently. This one, she whispered, nodding toward Noah, actually sees you. My throat went tight. She wasn't talking about Noah's eyes or attention. She was talking about the way I laughed around him, the way I breathed around him, the way I didn't shrink or feel like a placeholder or wait for someone to decide if I mattered. She saw me choosing myself, and she saw who chose me back. Later that night, back in my apartment, Noah and I curled up together on the couch, my legs draped across his lap, his fingers tracing little circles on my ankle. A notification buzzed on my phone. Instagram, from Aiden. A vague, poetic post about realizing too late, learning from mistakes, and the pain of losing someone irreplaceable. I didn't need to read between the lines to know who he meant. I put my phone face down. Noah looked at me. Do you want to talk about it? No, I said softly. I think I've talked enough. He nodded and kissed the back of my hand. I melted into the couch cushions, feeling warm and steady. Not dizzy, not anxious, just at peace. And for the first time in 3 years, I felt like myself again. Not the girl who waited, not the girl who hoped, not the girl who gave until she ran empty. Just Lily. Wanted, chosen, whole. And a final thought. Looking back, I can see the truth clearly. Aiden taught me what I will never accept again. I will not be someone's emotional crutch. I will not be the almost girlfriend. I will not be needed instead of wanted. I will not be the backup plan while someone else holds the main stage. Noah texts me because he's thinking of me, not because he's spiraling at midnight, not because he needs validation, not because I'm his emotional safety belt, because he wants to hear my voice. He asks about my day and listens. He makes time for me. He introduces me to his friends. He shows up. He chooses me, actively, intentionally, consistently. And that's what I deserved all along.